Shavua Tov to everyone. This week's parasha is Parashat Pinchas. A very special parasha, but especially it's unique in this book that we're contemplating on this year. I mean, in the Torah, the working of the Ishbitzer Rebbe, so one of the most famous, maybe the most well-known Torah that he has, most well-known vort that he says in this book is about Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. So the story, as most of us are familiar probably, is that there's a plague in the Jewish people after the slaying of Bil'am, after the victory over Bil'am and Balak in the previous parasha. So there was a faulting in the Jewish people. That many of our people went after the women, the promiscuous women who exposed themselves and tried to seduce and succeeded in seducing the Jewish people. And therefore there was a plague as a punishment. And even one of the captains of our tribes, his name was Zimri ben Salu. So even he himself, he falls, as Chazal described the entire outcome of how this came about. But the bottom line is that he himself married or took one of these women, one of the Midianite women's. And the man who was bothered the most by this, or even, he wasn't even a man, he was a boy, a young boy, was bothered the most by this Chilul Hashem. That this chief, a captain of the Jewish people, in public, in the most public manner, he's sinning and again making even a show out of it, as described in our sages' teachings. So what Pinchas does, this hot-headed young lad, is that he takes a long spear, and he goes and he kills them both. He executes them. And by doing so, he also stops the plague, and he also merits a very unique blessing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He becomes sanctified as a priest, a Kohen. No one has ever merited that. Again, it's something in lineage, inherited from father to son, but he becomes sanctified. Again, he was from that lineage. He was a Levi. But he wasn't sanctified as a Kohen because his father, or his grandfather actually, was made a Kohen after he was already born. So only the children that were born after that were Kohanim. But he gets blessed by Hashem because of this deed that he did to become a Kohen. A very famous tale. Now, in this tale, we'll just say this very briefly, but it's very obvious to anyone who's ever studied the Psukim that Pinchas, he's the good guy, and Zimri, the chief, the captain of Nasi Beit Avla Shimoni, of the tribe of Shimon. So he's the bad guy. He's the one who took the Midianite. He took this promiscuous woman and sinned with her. And Pinchas, he's the one who saved the day. But as the Ishbitzer explains, again, in his very unique manner of contemplation, it's not so simple. Things aren't as they seem. Superficially, it might seem that way, that he was the good guy in the story. With a deeper look, it's not so clear why he was more correct. And he goes on to explain this. This is why this is such a famous Torah, because it's so counterintuitive and so the opposite of what people are accustomed to thinking about this Torah. But what's actually the void that he's describing? So like doing in this short, brief contemplation, weekly contemplation that we have. So we want to focus on, again, the depth of the psychological intuition that he describes here. What he's saying is very briefly is like this. He says that, again, there are many situations in life. Everybody has many situations in life. You go through all sorts of scenarios, and everything needs a lot of wit and contemplation, patience. You need to be able to mediate and contemplate and understand all your situations, do the right thing. So this is what life is about. All of us are going through that in life. Now, the customary way to go through an intersection, that you reach a certain point in life, you need to make a decision. So what you need to do is you need to put yourself through it and try to understand the rights and the wrongs. So you use your mind, you use your scholarship, your Torah, the knowledge you know, the faith you have, and you try to understand the situation. So if it's pretty straightforward, if somebody's offering you an unlawful business effort, okay, so no, it's gezel, it's stealing, it's robbery, it's bad. So I know the Torah forbids that. So I say no. I know the right answer is no. But obviously in life things aren't so straightforward always. So you need a broad knowledge to understand. Sometimes it's very complicated, and both sides might seem good or both sides might seem bad, and you need to make a choice. So obviously not everybody has the same tools, same abilities to be able to contemplate every situation. So another one of the simplest the simplest pieces of advice that a person should take, which is a broad custom of the Jewish people and any sane people, is that you take advice from your elders. So you go to someone who has a broader point of view. But even the person with the broadest point of view Again, so if you go to Moshe Rabbeinu, like the greatest sage, so he should have all the tools to evaluate, like a Beis Din, a court, to evaluate the most intricate situations and decide for you. So you take advice from these people, you're going to have a broader ability to analyze the situations. But even, again, the broadest mind in the world, like the greatest sage in the world, still, there are certain situations that are not evaluatable. You just can't evaluate. You can't analyze them. They don't add up. Not everything in life adds up. That's the main void that Ishbitzer wants to pronounce here. It's not only because there isn't a great enough sage, but because reality, it's not a local phenomena. It's a quantum phenomena. Things aren't always completely measurable. You can't always measure everything. So again, not because you don't have the measurement capacity, but because of the nature of reality isn't a deterministic closed system. Again, just like Kadosh Baruch Hu, the God who's creating this world, he's not subjugated to any law. It's all by choice. And therefore the true nature of creation is also, even the created laws, they're not absolute. So there's always a margin that you can't completely assess. So many times in life we have the rulings, we have guidance, we also have our personal conscience, especially we have Torah. And we're able to analyze, we're commanded to analyze, we should analyze. But sometimes you analyze all the information, all the capacity you have, you go to all your sages, and still there's a situation that just, it's not analyzable. Now the tendency in such a state is to be somewhat paralyzed, again, if you only know how to analyze. But when these sorts of occurrences happen in life, again, so it could be something dramatic and national, like this story in the Torah about Pinchas. That's how the Ishbitzer explains this happening here. That what Cosby did, this deed, he explains all the ins and outs of his considerations, and he exposes how this wasn't such a clear-cut decision, who was right and who was wrong here, which is the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, he didn't do anything about it. He wasn't certain that he was correct. And Pinchas, why was he able to act? So here you get the again counterintuitive flip, that even though in general the greater the sage, the better, the more tools you have to analyze, the better. But when you reach a point that is not analyzable, so there everything flips over, and the merit or the abilities of a great sage become ironed out next to the simplest person. Sometimes even it flips, that the simple person in his bare intuition, whether or not to do something, if something can be analyzed, you have to go analyze it to the max. But if it can't be analyzable, so then how do you decide what to do? And should Pinchas go and kill this? I guess a very serious feat he's going through. There's no way back from that. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe this sage, maybe this chief of the tribe of Shimon, a great man, maybe he's correct. So how do you decide? So if you can't analyze it, there's a certain intuition, there's a sense, you need a sensitivity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will. What does Hashem want? Now, as we said before, it's not just that you can't analyze. Moreover, there are situations that aren't analyzable. Now, what does that mean on a theological level, that something isn't analyzable? That it doesn't add up to a clear-cut answer. So simply, if we say it in simple words, it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu basically hasn't decided yet. So if it's not something that the Torah says or decrees, then saying that it's objectively not analyzable, not just I lack the capacity to analyze it, but the information just doesn't add up. There's no clear-cut answer. It's a doubt. It's an objective doubt. You don't know what to do. It can't be known. There's nothing to do. You need to decide, to choose. So saying that is saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu hasn't chosen yet. It's objectively not known. So what decides what's good and bad? So in a sense, in this sort of situation, saying that something's good and bad is like implying that Kadosh Baruch Hu embraces your choice. And where something's not clear-cut, so a person does something, and if he does it in a manner that Hashem can be pleased with, and if he does it through self-annulment, it's not an egocentric, coarse thing, then Hashem is pleased by his choice. But there, retroactively, if Hashem decides, like Pinchas here, so it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him his blessing. How does Ishbitzer explain it? Not that he was right. Not that retroactively everybody saw that, he figured it out. No, there was nothing to figure out, but he acted. He acted on instinct. And inevitably, it turned out that his instinct was a pure instinct. that what was driving him was really the caring for Hashem. Now, it's not always that case. Very often, someone goes out in a violent streak. It's not his caring for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his sensitivity to God. No, it's his ego, his impulses. So that's definitely not good. And that's what the tribes were suspicious about Pinchas, that he's going out to kill this guy. It's just because he's a violent person. But no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu signed on it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu embraced his deed. And by doing so, he reflected, again, he showed the people that his initial motivation was a pure motivation. And therefore, it's not that he was right and the other person was wrong. Again, this was really a doubt. It wasn't something that was clear-cut. But Pinchas acted, again, from a juvenile, impulsive place, but it was a clean place. It was a pure motivation. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu embraced his motivation. And there he blesses him. So Hashem's blessing is like adopting this choice. It's not that he knew it was right. He decided that this is what needs to be done, and Hashem agreed with him. Not he agreed with Hashem. He sort of seduced Hashem to agree with him. So this, again, a very lofty concept here that obviously is playing with dynamite. But this is true. I mean, life isn't just a set of deterministic outcomes. So a lot of paths have been walked already, and we need to walk in the footsteps of giants anywhere we can. But especially in the very unique pinnacles of life, where you're treading unventured soil. Like there's a situation that you don't know what to do, and all the books and all the guidance and all the rabbis, they also don't know what to do because there's nothing to know yet. It's never been done. This could be something very personal in a person's life. There are many intersections like this in your life. Maybe who to marry, or what's your shlichut. So these aren't things that there's a right and wrong about. There's choice, and in order for something to breed a healthy, good outcome, it's not a matter of being right about them. It's a matter of doing it in a manner that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will embrace and choose to bless. He wants to reveal himself in that choice. So it's more than it matters what you do, it's how you do it, or what's driving you to do it. You need to refine your drives, your motivation. And if you're motivated correctly in these choices, let's take, for instance, that example we said. A person wants to get married, and he's debating: is this shidduch? Is this offer? I have this girl, and then we've been dating for a while. Should I marry her? So you can try and evaluate that question as much as you want. There is no clear-cut answer. It's choice. So what determines whether or not I'm right? How do I make the right choice? Again, so the right choice, more than being an assessment with a conclusion, it's a decision. A decision to go for it from the correct place. And if you go for it from the correct place, then it'll be a vessel for Hashem to adopt. He adopts your choice, and he blesses your choice. He agrees with you. You seduce Hashem to choose that what you said, okay, let's go for that narrative. Let's play out that plot that you just chose. And if you do it from a pure place, then Hashem will be, again, seduced to sign his name on your choice. And then it'll work out. And after 50 years of a wonderful marriage, you look back at it, you feel like you made the right choice. But it's not because you evaluated things right. It's not that you chose the right girl. You chose correctly. Again, not that she was the correct one in this idiom here that we're giving, but that your choice was, you chose in a correct manner. And that choice, coming from a correct motivation, enabled HaKadosh Baruch Hu to lay his blessing on your choice, to sign on it, to go for it. So again, maybe in the most important intersections of life, where you need to choose to go right or left, it won't be enough to just assess. Now again, we'll stress it one more time before we finish, that you have to exhaust all your assessments, obviously. And also, if your capacity for assessment is very minor, then okay, so go to sages, go to wise people. But there are, after all the assessment, so I can't just say this about anything. Should I punch you in the face? Okay, no, there's a halacha. The Torah says don't do that. Don't be violent. Okay, but sometimes there are much more intricate situations. And unique situations in life, and these are usually the most important situations in life, like the biggest questions, like that question we said for like who to marry, or maybe even a bigger, what's my calling, what's my shlichut. So very often it's not just a matter of right or wrong; it's a matter of choice. And if it's the right choice, it means that you've done it right. Not that it was correct objectively, but you went for it in a correct manner that enabled Hashem to sign on it. This is what we learn from Pinchas. That's how the Ishbitzer explains this tale in the Torah. That even though it wasn't objectively clear who was right and wrong, as he explains there, you'll have to look into his book. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Pinchas, even though objectively, as he explains, he was less correct in a simplified manner, because he was younger and he had a much more narrow, a hot-headed point of view, but it was pure. And it really came from a pure place. That's not always the case. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed it. He blessed his actions. He chose to adopt the narrative that Pinchas suggested. And therefore he got blessed. And we should learn from this in the heated moments of life. In the greatest things that are our callings in life, very often, more than our ability to assess what's the right thing to do, we need to assess our motivation and make sure we're doing it in the right manner. And then Hashem will lay His blessing on our actions, B'ezrat Hashem.